Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. I think I said that introduction a little bit too loud there when it came out of my mouth. But yeah, welcome if you're here right now. Feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions as we do go on in this video. And you talk about a range of other things in between. We'll try and maintain focus on Dylan Rounds, the case, because it still continues. And we have an interesting video today. We're doing a map analysis, storytelling, visual focus and analysis with pictures of the timestamps of the 28th of May 2022, okay? We've already looked at the initial part, the build-up of where Dylan wakes up, where he goes down to the Grainshed property and where it eventually ends within a 30-minute period, okay? We've used imagery, we've tried to talk it through. We've also looked inside of the Grainshed where maybe the showdown occurred between Dylan and Brenner, looking for bullet holes, trying to just visually take a look and absorb it, right? If you want to see that video, it is available on my channel and I will provide a link down below in the pinned comment section so you can check it out after watching this one, okay? We are going to be using a certain project on Google Earth of all the timestamps, but focusing on just a particular one this time, right? Last time it was 6:51 a.m. up to 7:27 a.m. okay, within that space. This time round, we're following on after 7:27 a.m. up to the next timestamp, which I'll share with you soon, okay? And I was able to get back photos of Dylan's farm. I mean, I could use slightly more up-to-date ones, but that's after the things have been taken away. And we want to try and get as original as possible what was present there at the time, right? So we'll go through those photos roughly at that point. Up close, trailer, inside, if you haven't already, we take a look at that. And I think we could also begin with an aerial shot as well, just to mark out everything that's present, don't you think? Because what we're trying to understand today, and I'll probably bring it back up later on in this video, just in case people do join later, is trying to understand what was the purpose of Brenner going down to Dylan's farm, spending roughly 30 minutes in the area. What was he looking for? What was the motive? Was there anything of interest, right? Does anything tie with things being taken away supposedly? All that type of stuff, right? And it probably will make more sense when we get into the visual part and we can actually point out things of interest, okay? But I think what I will do just to begin with, before people start coming on in, just as a little backstory to the previous video I did, I'll also provide a link down below in the comment section for that as well if you haven't watched it. Good behaviour within people in the chat, discussions, focus, so that's all good. Shack Lady was present as well for a longer period of time, so appreciate that, it's good of her. What I'm going to do is just briefly check the comments out of the last video because there's a couple of questions, okay, and I'll be able to answer some of them. And we'll just see if there's any other points of interest. Let's head on over now, and once we've got that out the way, we can begin this deep analysis, okay? Right, so here we are in the comments section. We'll set it to the newest and start from the bottom, work our way up. So we got Linda there saying an hour later today. I guess she was saying she was just going to be later to the video premiere. Christy there as well. Cleo pulling some dodgy emojis. Are you ill, Cleo? Do you have a high temperature? I'm not quite sure. Missing remote popping up there. Mike Mason, I believe this could be a new viewer. Shout out to Mike. What does he say? Now that he's displayed that he doesn't fact know where the body is, they should send some and then tell him if you don't want solitary confinement, you give up where the body is. I think that's fair and leverage enough. leverage. Louise says, is he saying he doesn't know where the body is? Mike Mason responding, he says he does want deal. Parents say no, we will find him, let him sit. But I'm saying now that it's clear he knows the judge should be able at sentence let you either or tell or serve your time in solitary confinement if you're going to hold back that info. If convicted of the crime, he has indicated he knows well that's a crime, so make him speak or suffer separation. Right, I don't quite understand any of that. Well, from what's been said in recent time, and Candice Cooley relaying it on in the latest East Idaho News Channel interview, which is available to watch on the East Idaho News Channel on YouTube, Candice Cooley said, in responding to Nate Eaton's question regarding Brenner, does Brenner know, will Brenner reveal where Dylan Rounds is at? Candice Cooley was nodding her head, saying yes. He said he would tell us. He would tell them, in response to the family, where Dylan Rounds is at. So, you see the key word, would. He would tell the parents where Dylan Rounds is at. Now, it's based on conditions, it's based on a deal, right? If Brenner reveals the location of Dylan, Brenner has to get something back. He has to receive like a lesser sentence, let's just say. And from how it's been worded recently, and I think it's obvious that the family can't be making all of the deals and demands. It'll be up to other people, right? Up to other authorities and groups within the case. Though Candice Cooley and Justin do have the final say. They can agree to it or reject it. And from what's been said recently by that East Idaho News Channel interview, Candice Cooley said, we couldn't accept it. We just couldn't. And Justin agreeing as well, saying it'll be more beneficial and better if we find Dylan ourselves. Sure, it's risky, but it can be more fulfilling, I guess, right? So, not quite sure why it's worded like that here, but I just wanted to clear that up. Okay. About solitary confinement, I don't know if that's the case with Brenner. I mean, I've only had a few little questions regarding Brenner and his prison time. You know, he doesn't consume alcohol anymore, of course, because of where he's at. Did he experience any side effects? I don't know, but he's not dead yet, so that's something, I guess. He's not reacted too badly. I know someone like Indiana was saying his health, he looks bad, he looks ill. I don't really know, to be honest. Like, I've only just seen one photo of Brenner originally and then after. And, you know, the main difference was he didn't look as filled out in the face because he's not as fat because of, you know, not drinking alcohol and eating only certain specific meals because where he's at. And with him doing a hunger strike as well, at one point, a 30-day hunger strike previous. As well, you know, he had his, I guess, hair cut slightly and his beard too. So that all does play a factor, right? He's got glasses on when I saw the photo of him in Weber County Jail. But yeah, that's where it really sits at the moment. Joseph, hi Raf, hope everyone's doing well. I have a question about the gun used. Was it Dylan's or Brenner's? Was it Dylan's gun Brenner was seen in the video cleaning? Was it Dylan's gun, the one returned to the camper? I read in chat Dylan's shirt might have been found. Rat. Was Dylan's DNA on Brenner's shirt? I think Brenner used Dylan's truck with the lights off in the AM hours of Sunday morning and had everything done before daylight. Any thoughts? How should I word this? I can answer those questions from what I've heard. I'm just surprised Joseph is asking these questions because it feels like role reversal. Because previously Joseph was saying this and that this happened, that followed, that he knows of this, he knows of that, and it's been like that since day one. And then I and maybe some others were like, oh, I've never really heard of that before. Why has it only just come out now if you've known about it all this time? and like Joseph following along within the case, and yet now he's asking these questions which were talked about by Candice Cooley. So unless maybe Joseph hasn't been as active recently and he's not picked up on it, it's just like a change, right? But basically, the bit where it says the question about the gun used. So Joseph is jumping in, already assuming that the gun was used. And, you know, it does seem likely. It seems likely a gun was used, but it's not definitively 100% confirmed, validated yet. Okay? Not at this moment in time. It seems to be slanting towards that way, but it's not been 100% said in a court document from what I've read. Okay? But if it was the case that a gun was used, moving on to the next question, was it Dylan's gun, the one that was seen in the video of Brenner cleaning? Could be, possibility, yeah. I mean, it depends what gun it is, depends what model it is. Candice Cooley Justin didn't say anything in the interviews. Maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe because they're not allowed to say anything. So that could reinforce that, possibly. You know, let me know in the chat, you know, what you think. Was it Dylan's? We probably can do a poll for now, just like for now. On the condition that a gun was used, do you think the gun Brenner was cleaning in that recorded video on Dylan Round's phone, was it Dylan's gun in that video, which Brenner stole, or was it Brenner's own gun? Let me know. Now, this is the thing I actually want to highlight now, okay? Because I've just thought of it, and it's a valid point. If you think about it, Brenner did go down, from the looks of it, to Dylan's farm later on, right? But you know what the problem is? Whilst you could associate Brenner taking Dylan's gun if he's gone down to the farm, and then also a gun appearing in that video recording of Brenner cleaning it, you could say, well, there you go. But that is not how it followed in that order. Incorrect. It doesn't fit in with the timestamps, right? At 7:27 a.m. in the morning of Saturday, May 28th, that is when Brenner was caught on that video recording on Dylan's phone inside of his own trailer, Brenner's trailer, cleaning that gun. If that was Dylan's gun, then how did Brenner get a hold of it? Because it's after 7:27 when Brenner went down to Dylan's farm. So what that would have meant is Brenner, before taking Dylan out, would have had to have gone down to Dylan's farm to get the gun. And it just doesn't quite sit well that if Dylan was down there the day before or in the early hours of the morning because of, you know, returning back Friday night to his farm. So Dylan would have already confronted Brenner most likely. You get what I'm saying? It just doesn't quite tie in line, right? And maybe we'll see that pattern, the clarity of that being shown later on in this video. So I don't think it can be Dylan's gun in that video recording because the timestamp is before Brenner actually went down to Dylan's farm, okay? Unless the phone pings of Brenner's actual phone show that he went down to the farm a day before, maybe, but just can't imagine it, okay? Any other questions here? Was it Dylan's gun, the one returned to the camper? Possibly, but I don't think it links to that earlier event of cleaning the gun though, because the timestamps not in the correct order. I read in chat Dylan's shirt might have been found. Well, from how it's been worded in the previous articles, it wasn't that it might have been found, it was found. And when they were looking at that video recording of Brenner, they were able to associate and match that top with the blood on to the one they found when the police went down to inspect and go into his trailer and got a hold of it. Okay? Was Dylan's DNA on Brenner's shirt? Yeah, because of the blood. It was. Yeah, blood. The DNA tested it, and it was Dylan's blood. Okay? Anything else? I think Brenner used Dylan's truck with the lights off in the AM, early hours of Sunday morning, and had everything gone before daylight. Any thoughts? I don't know. I just feel like most of what went down happened on a Saturday. As for the desecration part, that's in question. The day after Sunday, the day after that, or much later, when Brenner was like, oh, you know, all you people need to get away from me, and then the police advised the family to back off from the property. That's still in question, right? I mean, so just go back to that previous question by Joseph of was the gun back was supposedly returned back to the camper Dylan's? Most likely, because that's what they said. The family, how they responded, how they answered it later, saying Dylan's gun was returned back and his key fob. So they're already acknowledging that is Dylan's gun, right? If you think about it, and we can bring it up more later, if Brenner did go down to the farm at a point in time, as we know, he could have taken the gun at that moment along with the key fob, then return it back at a later date. That's the way I see it in that order, right? As for the gun cleaning video, I'd say it's probably more Brenner's own firearm. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if the votes switch and change after saying all that. But make sure to vote. Do you think that video recording of Brenner cleaning the gun, was it Dylan's gun or was it Brenner's? Because there was a firearm based on the condition that it was used in Dylan's murder, right? That's the key thing. Let's move on. Lulu Gomez. I think last time I said Hernandez. I don't know. It's just like the first word that came to my mind. But Lulu says it can also be called use of a corpse, but Utah is choosing to use the term desecration. It can mean failing to report finding a dead body, hiding, moving, or dismembering a body. I'd assume he is being charged with this as a backup plan in case he is not convicted for the murder charge. I guess so. I mean, at least the news articles, most of them, if not all, did say and word it as Brenner was charged of abuse and/or desecration. Something like that. They used both terms, right? But yeah, desecration, umbrella term for many different scenarios. As for using it as a backup plan, I don't think that's the case. I feel it's more so that it coincides with the murder of Dylan because it was another action performed by Brenner post-death of Dylan, where it involved removing him elsewhere. Shack Lady, I did ask her last night what her thoughts were, and she believed that Dylan was only moved once. And I just wanted to confirm by what she meant by that. Basically, Shack Lady said that once Dylan was murdered, Brenner buried Dylan somewhere and then removed him elsewhere, and then that was it. So that's what she means by moved only once. Should say removed once. Okay. But yeah, give your thoughts. Louise Haraway, what case are you doing next after this one is done? I mean, obviously it's one of those things where how long does this case go on for? It could still drag on, right? You know, there could be still twists and turns. There may be breaking news here and there, and it will be covered, of course. But to answer the question, once this case is done, completed, or if it gets to a point where this case reaches a dead end or there's absolutely nothing left to cover, then I'd probably move back to the Kenny Veach case, right? Because I feel there is still things to cover within that as well. At least 12 to 15 videos or so. Now, as said, key thing to remember, if there's any breaking news, and I mean breaking news, then it will be covered, you know, when it comes out, or when it's heard of, right? So being honest, when I say I have videos to cover on the Kenny Veach M Cave case, it'll be like observation ones, analysis, theories, ideas, concepts, right? But if it was breaking news, whether I'm covering the Dylan Browns case right now, which I am, and something came out about Kenny Veach, then I would jump onto that and cover it as soon as possible to spread awareness so people are up to date on it. Does that make sense to you? But the videos that may not be breaking news, it hasn't got that fast demand, right? So I might as well just stick to what I'm doing. But, if you was to put aside Kenny Veach and it's like, yeah, but what actual case are you going on to next? I.e., what new case? It probably would be Aidan Clune. It'd probably be Aidan Clune, yeah. Why? Because it's like within the area, kind of nearby to Dylan Rounds, so it feels a little bit easier to follow on, right? It's not like completely new, and I have done the odd videos previous of Aidan, which went okay, and I've got a little bit of information and understanding of how things played out. Sure, I might not remember all the dates and the timestamps or names of locations, but visually I do remember what roughly happened, right? So you'll be able to get back into the saddle, okay? That type of situation. And with it being desert terrain, once again, you can do your maps, you can do analysis, you can do your photos, you can do all of that. As for the length, I really don't know. But what I will say in advance, when it comes to covering cases, being 100% honest, I much prefer covering an ongoing case or a cold case which can be covered in depth and length over a longer period of time. I don't like doing videos where you have to tell a story from start to end about a missing person, where you got to cram everything all into one video and make it not that long either. I'm just not about that. I have done it once and it was kind of difficult. You get me? I had more control over it because it was based off from what only I knew of, with coming across someone online and then them going quiet, right? And from what I've seen, or I had the odd email to use as when telling the story. But when it comes to other cases out there, look at Kenny Veach, right? You could argue Kenny Veach is an example of telling the story from start till end. And a lot of big YouTubers have covered it, but they tell the same regurgitated story. Once there was a hiker, he went out into the desert, he was never seen again, the end, right? With a little bit of depth in between. I don't really like doing that. What I like to do, whether it be fresh on a case or late to the party, I like covering videos post-disappearance, trying to understand what happened after the person went missing and where did they go, what happened in between, was there anything just a few days before which may have led to something like a backstory. Do you get what I'm saying? I like to cover a case and move forwards with it, even though it's kind of died down or it's ongoing and there's no real conclusion. So it enables me to be able to look into it with my style, with my coverage, and for it to have the depth and length where you can cover it for a fair bit of time so you can truly understand the case, work forwards, and then if at any point you need to look back, you check back, you look back retrospectively. So then you learn about the beginning of the case and you're also aware of where things currently stand. Does that make sense, Louise Haraway? They're the type of cases, mysteries I like doing. I don't like a one-time, all-in-one video about someone or something. No, I prefer spreading it out so it's easier to understand and pick it apart bit by bit and then maybe attach it all down the line. Yeah, because if it was short little cases, short little things here and there. It'd be too fragmented, and it just wouldn't really have a pace or a flow to like the videos. You know, you go onto the channel, one day it's about this person, next day it's about that person, the next day it's about another person. It's just too abrupt. It is. Whereas if it's looking at one singular person, one event, one case, and it unfolds day by day, it feels like you're learning as you go along, and you can always refer back and look back at a previous video without being distracted by unrelated stuff. Okay? So hopefully that answers that. There's this one, Louise. They do it on purpose to cause drama. You want to boot them out of your chat if they start giving it loads. You don't need them bringing your channel down. Let's try and assess this realistically. Whilst we might have had rats in the chat and other people in between causing trouble, most of them haven't caused trouble to me, but of course they may have caused trouble to other viewers. Has it led to a decrease statistically to prove that the channel has gone down or backwards? Nope. I mean, statistically, it's gone down. Some statistics on my channel are at an all-time low compared to how they were previous, but that isn't because of cancer coming on in. It's because of people losing interest in the case. Because it's gone on for so long, people want change. People want to see other things, which makes sense. But if there's stuff to cover, there is stuff to cover, and that's what I need to do, right? So that's just how it goes. Do you compare it to the Titanic? You know, as it's a sinking feeling as it goes down and down and down? No, because this is the thing. If you have the stamina, you can outlive the downfalls, okay? And it does prove that in recent time. A month or two ago, you could get like a total of 400 people that have watched a video or less, right? That's what we were talking about. It went down. And then in recent time, it's gone up to about 800 people to 1,000, right? How it used to be. That's more so because of relevant breaking news, right? Important stuff which intrigues people, right? It's because of that mainly, but it just goes to show that if you stick around long enough, you see the downfall and you see the regrowth or the temporary growth coming back. I mean, you could say the odd few viewers have taken a step back, maybe just more so in the chat, right? You might see the odd few people missing. Oh, where have they gone? Maybe it's because they're taking a break from the chat, but they're watching in the background. And that's all because they can't stand the BS, the bullshit, the other viewers come in with, the ones that are causing trouble, right? And sure, you could say, well, why not the channel? Me. I should just block those people, you know, deny them access or something. This is the thing. You can block people, but it does not stop them from watching. Anyone can watch your videos unless you set the videos private, members only, or unlisted, and only select it to a few people, right? They're the only ways you can get around it. Though, you know, even if it was unlisted and it was kind of a private video, if a person has a link, they can share it to somebody else who's an outsider, and then they can view it that way. So there's always a back door, right? But the negative it leads to is if you start blocking this person and blocking that person, you're going to start alienating people. And then that's what does lead to bringing one's own channel down. And as well, even if it wasn't statistically, it would be the fact that you probably piss people off. If they're causing other people trouble but not you, and then I block them, then I'm going to bring trouble to my own door. Not literally. But then people start focusing on me, and then they start targeting me, and then it could affect my channel, maybe in some way. It could cause distractions and annoyances, nuisances. Don't need that, right? So you just keep it how it is right now. If people are interested in the case, then it will show. If they're not interested, then it will show as well, right? Best way of keeping it like that. And once again, as for the people that find certain humans annoying, you've always got the option to block them, and then you never have to see them ever again, okay? It's as simple as that. Lorraine Taylor says, I think it's the parents' decision about the plea deal. The YouTubers, facepalm, facepalm, facepalm. Right, okay. I mean, the parents do have the final decision about the deal, but they most likely aren't the ones to set it up, create it, right? Anything else? Cleo, love the weather. Intro, relaxing. Thank you for keeping it up with Dylan. Shout out to Cleo. Patsy, what's that? Cats are in. Thanks. Shout out to Patsy. She approves of the kitty cats. That's good. And lastly, most recently, Indiana. She says, to Candice and Justin, bring Dylan home. Learn to forgive your worst enemy no matter what they have done. Punishment is worth nothing if it doesn't help to find your lost son. I mean, sometimes you've got to put things above something else, right, for the best outcome, even if you don't want to. I mean, I guess the best way of looking at it, because it has technically already happened, you look at Candice Cooley, her frustrations with the likes of Box Elder County, the LE, not had exactly the best of experiences with them, right, from what she said, but she still, to this day, have put up with them and cooperated with them, and maybe more so in recent time, considering she's been more quiet. She's not been as vocal online. So she has calmed down and she is working with the LE despite everything that's happened in the past. So if Candice Cooley can put up with that, put up with the LE, then she should, or she could be able to do it with Brenner as well. Even if she doesn't like Brenner, of course, she possibly could be able to work with him and make a deal because she's put up with the LE and how they've been. So is it any worse? When you think about it, maybe not. Let me know your thoughts, Fam. Is that it of the comments? Yes, that seems to be. Right, so that was it of the comments. Hopefully I was able to answer most of those questions. If you got any more, of course, list them down below in the comment section, right? Or even in the live chat, might as well make use of it because some good discussions come out from it, right? But yeah, welcome if you have just joined in this video. If you've joined late, feel free to rewind back if you want, or do that later. What we are going to do right now is move on to the main part of this video, taking a look at Brenner and his visit, from the looks of it, based off the phone pings, to Dylan Round's farm post-murder of Dylan. Okay, we're continuing on from the timestamps of what we've previously looked at. I think what we'll begin with first is the maps, just to refresh your memory and move from there, okay? And then we can go on to the photos and look closer at Dylan's farm to understand what was going through Brenner's mind at the time, right? So let's head on over now to the maps. Yeah, as you can see on the maps right now, we're going to pounce right into it, you know, following on from where we last left off. So, 7:03 a.m, Dylan at the shed, presumed alive. And then straight after that, whatever happened, Dylan murdered in the space of 30 minutes. 7:27, as you see, within that 30-minute period, a.m, the video recording of Dylan Round's phone depicting Brenner cleaning a gun inside of his trailer, right? And it's after 7:27 we look at today. After 7:27, Brenner makes his journey down to Dylan's farm. And if we flip the image, you'll be able to see in the distance, there we go, focusing on the blue marker only with the caption above it, 7:43 a.m, Dylan Round's phone leaves the grain shed and arrives at Dylan Round's farm, right? So I guess one thing to take in mind before we go any further, after 7:27 a.m, Brenner did not immediately leave the grain shed. He left at 7:43 a.m. to go on to Dylan's farm, okay? And then at Dylan's farm, he spent 30 minutes there, okay? So between 7:27 a.m. to 7:43 a.m., what do you think Brenner was up to? Disposing of Dylan, tying up some loose ends, just sitting down, taking it all in. Maybe he was in a little bit of shock, or maybe he was just planning the next strategy, the next move forwards. Maybe within that period, he was like, right, how should I dispose of Dylan? What should I use? And then he figured out, oh, maybe I'll go down to Dylan's farm. Possibility. We will do a poll right now, just as a discussion point, so people can share their thoughts and votes. So, between 7:27 a.m. to 7:43 a.m. of when he left the grain shed property, what do you think Brenner was up to in that space of time? I mean, roughly 20 minutes or under. What could you really be doing, you know? And I'll select a few different options. Was it A, Brenner was disposing of Dylan right there? Or is it B, Brenner was just relaxing, taking it all in? Or was it C, Brenner was frantically thinking about the next step forwards, such as disposing Dylan, but not actually physically doing it just yet, but thinking of possibilities of how and where, you know, that type of thing. And then came to his mind, oh, I'll go to Dylan's farm and see what I can find there. Let me know your thoughts. And I'll do a fourth option as something else, but make sure if you do vote that one, list your thoughts down below and elaborate. Okay? So, we move on to the next step. Brenner going down to Dylan's farm. You could say on the spot, how do we know it's Brenner? It could be somebody else. Well, we're presuming it's Brenner because Brenner was obviously in possession of Dylan Round's phone post-murder, hence why that video recording at 7:27 a.m. exists, right? So Dylan's no longer present or alive from the looks of it. Brenner's in possession of that phone. Brenner may have put Dylan's phone in his pocket and then went down to the farm, hence why the phone ping and timestamp is down there, but in Brenner's possession, right? The next question is, how did Brenner get down there? Well, if you think about it, you don't want to be sat around too long. You want to get on with things. And, if you're going to meet Don Haley afterwards for that barbecue, you just got to speed up, right? So I can't imagine Brenner walked diagonally to the farm over there like how Dylan would because of age, because of Brenner's ankle, leg injuries in the past, him claiming disability allowance. He's not going to walk. Even if he could, he probably wouldn't because he's lazy. So what? He used his horse or did he use his pickup truck? I'd say he probably used his own truck to get down there. Is there anything I would say in advance if that was the case? I'll just say it now before I forget. In advance, if Brenner took his truck down to Dylan's farm and then, let's say, Brenner got into Dylan's truck to drive elsewhere or to pick up Dylan's remains and then dispose that way, then eventually once Brenner is done with that truck, drives it back to the farm, and then Brenner's truck is still there, so then he can get back into it and drive back to his property. So Brenner always has a mode of transportation, available at his hand. So he's not suddenly taking a truck here and then being stranded because he's got nothing to drive back, okay? So it kind of makes sense that. So we'll base it under the concept that Brenner was using some mode of transportation, most likely his own truck, okay? So after 7:43 a.m., Brenner gets in his truck, drives down this way, whether he locks the gate or not. Maybe he does. Here's the gate, passes through it where that red marker was, gets to this point here, well, actually a bit further down. But then again, it depends if he does take a shortcut because you do have the odd shortcut, right? As you can see, it's like a triangular thing. Can you see that triangular point? So either he turned off left here, or he went further down to Sun Tunnels at the crossroad, then turned left, drove down this long dirt road, approaching Dylan's farm. I wonder what was going through Brenner's mind at the time when he was driving down. Was he like frantically worrying? Was he stressed? Was he cool, calm, collective? What was going on at that point? Was he speeding, in a hurry? Did he feel like he was racing against time or not? Let me know your thoughts to what do you think Brenner was feeling and experiencing at the time. Because from what I know of at least, Brenner hasn't killed anyone before. He has hurt people seriously, but not like fatally. So with that in mind, from what at least I've heard of, was it any shock to Brenner what he did to Dylan? Sometimes if you're in shock, you might react very quick to a situation. I know other people freeze, but it's that fight or flight response. And maybe with Brenner, he was like, oh shit, right, I best cover this up quick. So approaching Dylan's farm here, as you can see, driving on in, turning round, and then parking up near to the pond, let's say. And although we can't see it on the maps here, at this point near to the pond lays Dylan's Ford F-150 Burgundy pickup truck, and next to it are the two trailers of Dylan, one of which Dylan stays in from time to time. I guess the other trailer is more so for storage. And at this point, I think we can probably transition into the visual telling of the story of once Brenner arrived at Dylan's farm. So what we were just looking at on maps is exactly what we see here, Dylan Round's farm, okay? So it's kind of from like an aerial viewpoint because of a flyby, which was by Heavy D. Tried getting the image quality as clear as possible. Hopefully you can see it good. We will be going on ground level very shortly, but I just wanted an overview of Dylan's farm and what you could see. Any places of interest here that would intrigue or motivate Brenner in terms of visiting. Or let's say once Brenner got here, parked up, got outside, started walking about, what was the first thing going through Brenner's mind? What attracted him the most? Was it some of the farm equipment down here? Such as these like backhoes, if you call it that, like tractors. If not that, was it this tank here? Is it a septic tank? Something else? Could Brenner have been thinking, oh, well, this looks like a good spot to be disposing of Dylan? Maybe that's not quite the case, but could it apply with post-desecration, removing Dylan, taking him back down here? Well, not back. Well, yeah, taking him back to his farm, but not alive, and concealing him in this tank. I mean, locations like these have been talked about previous by people, but within the investigation, the actual searches by police authorities, did the police check the likes of this tank, yes or no? And did they do so with others, which may have been on the grain shed property, right? Anything else of interest here which could have been used in the disposal? I mean, interestingly enough, we've got like a little gully or some kind of little pond down here. It like dips down in the middle of the screen and you can see some water filling up, unless it's a puddle, maybe. Anything else? Over here, we've got some kind of truck, but it's not the grain truck, as that's back at the grain shed, and you see it in Heavy D's first video as it's exposed, basically not parked inside of the grain shed but left out. And that was because Brenner was the one that brought it back out when he was doing that spring cleaning June the 2nd, right? So yeah, it wasn't that long after when Heavy D came down to visit, so worth taking that into mind. Some poles back there, from the looks of it, long ones. You can see track marks though, right there. Now, what you got to take in mind, those track marks could be by anyone. I'm not for certain. And because, this is post Dylan's disappearance, post 30th of May, when the family went down to Dylan's farm to check in, they could have been the track marks caused, right? You never know. But what we're just mainly focusing on is the vehicles and items present which could have intrigued Brenner, whether it be using them to dispose of Dylan or for other means in between, right? And one of the ones that stands out the most, aside from the tractors you see, the John Deere ones, is this yellow backhoe. This yellow backhoe was present at Dylan's farm before he disappeared and after he disappeared up to a certain point, as you see documented in this Heavy D video, though months later, even to present day now, this backhoe is no longer visible here because it was moved and taken to the grain shed property. And when that happened, whether it be shortly afterwards or whenever, one of the wheels at least was let down or let down itself with time. So it's not exactly movable anymore. And it's no real attempt or method has been put in place to recover it, retrieve it, right? So maybe it's not of that importance. Now, is this the backhoe which had the blood on it, the DNA of Dylan, the backhoe that may have been used to dispose of Dylan? I don't think so, but if there's another backhoe present somewhere which people have acknowledged, then that's a possibility. Lance Kelly had said that he's not revealing the identity of the person that owns it. I guess it'll probably be for certain reasons, of course, but, just leave you guessing and thinking. I guess people will be assuming Kurt Wadsworth. But, if Kurt Wadsworth, does only Kurt have one backhoe or two? I mean, if he only has one, this is the one here. As for the other, someone else, I guess. But really, if it was that important and this was the one, then it would have been taken away by the police, which it wasn't. So if there's any other backhoes out there which are no longer present, that's probably the one that was taken by police. Though, just to be honest, not seen any news articles, any documents or family members saying anything about it. So there is that just to take in mind at least. But if it's that important, it probably won't be talked about as publicly, right? I do understand that as well, that concept. So just give your thoughts to what you think of Dylan Round's farm. Does it look professional? Does it look established? So we've looked at most of the stuff, I guess. Is that a washing machine down there? Not quite sure. But really, the things that do stand out to me is that tank there. It's a fair-sized one, right? Would it be easy, though, to dispose of someone inside of a tank like that? Or is the opening, the entrance point, a little too tight? If it's just like a circular hole, or does it open up wider? If anyone knows, leave a thought down below. But yeah, just wanted to share this part with you because I know there's some people that do think along the lines of how Dylan was disposed of. You see the ground as well kind of looks compact in some areas. That was done previous to ensure that vehicles did not get stuck. And we can move on to over here as well because, where was it now? Do you know off in the distance? What's that blue thing over there? Top left corner of the screen right now. There appears to be some object and blue box shaped thing nearby. What is that? A pivot or something else? Let me know if you do know. But like the look of it, the colour, not the object, but the ground leading up to it looks more like a runway, a strip almost. Because the ground kind of looks smooth. Do you see like the shape of it? It's like a road, a very wide road going down to that way. Though That's probably what we see on Google Earth, I believe, from that angle. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, is that the zone where Dylan was planting his seeds, that strip going up that way? Is that the case or not? If you know, feel free to list it down below. Obviously, you got Dylan's pond down there, which does look fairly drained, but what was said that Dylan's pond was drained, right? So that's probably why the water levels are low, aside from the fact that, the temperatures as well, and if it's rained or not. Though from what we have heard and seen, it did rain early hours of Saturday, and it did rain on Sunday. So that's why we do see the odd few puddles, such as down here, that water there in the middle. Is there any puddles on the ground over here? Not from the looks of it. Though, if we was to look at a few months later from when this photo was done, when Heavy D went back and flew over, it was more flooded, right? Probably because of just more rainfall. But we have done before and after comparisons of these images. So if you do want to check that, feel free to check the other videos on my channel. So after looking all about, Brenner most likely, I feel, went to this spot first of all. He parked up, whether it be right outside or further afar, walked up to this point and was like, do I take Dylan's truck? Do I go into his trailer and see if there's any items of interest? What you got to take in mind with Brenner is he's probably looking for opportunities, items, objects to be usable in successfully concealing Dylan's body. But also, Brenner's probably thinking, is there anything I can take, steal? Because he's been known previous for burglary. It's not his first time, right? And with him previously stealing that .22 caliber rifle, at someone's trailer, he's carried in the same thing here, in a way. So, I think we should go on ground level now, don't you think? So, if we zoom in here, we should appear on ground level right now. And here we are. You see the two trailers of Dylan. The one back there, I believe, is the storage one. And then the one here is the one Dylan stayed in from time to time, okay? What you did see previous on that photo, what we looked at, the aerial shot, was where Dylan lived, something like that. I did not type that. That was from Heavy D's footage as a screenshot, okay? So, to clear things up, if there's any confusion, Dylan did not live here, all the time. He, stopped by here and there when he had to do his farm-related work, right? Because to be living out here all the time, at least for Dylan, but more so in general, it just wouldn't be that practical. Okay, Brenner's managed, Don Haley's managed, but, it's not for everyone, right? And I guess the way it's been worded by families, Dylan may have got bored out there, and that's why he went down to Montello, change of scenery and stuff. So there's always that. But we just put that thought aside. Almost looking from this point of view, this could be the point of view visually what Brenner had once he got up close to Dylan's truck. He may have walked past the truck, took a peek through the window, just checking on in. Is there anything in there I can see? Anything of interest? Did he notice the gun immediately and then he broke into it? Or did he only notice the gun in the footwell, the door, whatever you call it, compartment thing on the side? Maybe. I feel like he may have gone inside of the trailer to begin with, possibly. Depends how much of a rush he was in. You see some items down there. You got a little log, which I guess is more of a step to stand on when getting into the trailer. Trailer is a fair size. And take in mind, you do have the one back there, which I guess described by others as storage. Now, what type of storage did Dylan have in that trailer? Anything of use that could be used to dispose of Dylan? Maybe. Anything used to cause desecration? A saw blade, fuel, petrol, any of that? Leave your thoughts. Because I've not seen any photos inside of that trailer, only the one Dylan stayed in from time to time. Okay? We will return back to this F-150 truck, but I just wanted to do it in the order I believe it happened in. So once Brenner got here, he went into the trailer. This trailer. This is just a different angle, okay? As we see down that way, that's that strip I was talking about, the way it was going all the way down. Anything else of interest here? Not really. Are the windows all shut? I think so, from the looks of it. But yeah, Brenner possibly went inside. Did he ransack the place? It was previously worded like that by others when people looked inside of the trailer because of the mess, the condition it was in. But to an extent, Candice Cooley reassured people that likely it wasn't ransacked and that it's just how Dylan was. With him either like leaving doors open so it would collect lots of dust and dirt, Dylan leaving food out on the side when he was sidetracked by other things. It was just normal Dylan, right? Possibly. All I would say is, did they find any DNA or evidence of someone like Brenner or someone else that went in here? You know, footprints, possible. Depends. Like, you going through dirt, walking through it, you tread it inside of her, would it show? That's the question. And from the photos I've seen, I've not really seen any footprints inside of the trailer. People did say around Dylan's farm you could see footprints in the ground, supposedly, or around near the truck. There's that. But really, it's just visually looking here. Is there anything that stands out to you? Anything that Brenner would take from here, right? Maybe Brenner doesn't know what's inside. And he's just going through the drawers, the cupboards, leaving some of them open, not shutting them properly. Maybe he's looking for money, right? Let's just do a poll right now. Once Brenner supposedly got to Dylan's farm, what do you think he was primarily looking for? Money? A gun? Just out of his own interest? Or was he primarily looking for an item, an object, equipment, something that could be used to help specifically and directly dispose of Dylan? What do you think came first of most significance for why Brenner was down at Dylan's farm? Okay, you got to take in mind that 30 minutes spent down here, so he didn't have a lot of time to be thinking deep. So he could have just been searching about briefly, rushing his way through. I mean, it already looks like a mess, this trailer. Did it look like this originally in the past? Probably, I think so. So I think to the left, I think that's a bed or it's a couch, one or the other. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got an image looking the other end of the trailer. And that would be arguably more important looking back that way, you know? But if people have any other images of this trailer or the other trailer nearby from different angles and perspectives, it'd be good to see them, if possible, of course. When looking down here, this little cardboard box, anything of interest? Maybe not. But the one next to it, white trash bag from the looks of it, with somewhat like maybe black clothing or rubbish dumped inside of it. I'm not quite sure what that is. But, you know, what I will say is, you know, previous Candice Cooley was talking about during that spring cleaning, Brenner used white trash bags. And, you know, some people disagreed with that, saying, no, why would you be using white trash bags? That's what you get inside of a kitchen. It's most likely black bin bags, black trash bags that would be used when disposing of stuff. But if you look at this photo here, you can clearly see there is a white trash bag. So possibility that Candice Cooley may have been right in what she said. This is just simply referring back to an old point that, okay? But I just wanted to bring it up because it reminded me of it, okay? I mean, the main focus would be the ground. Can you see any footprints on the ground? There's a few like dirty marks back there, but that's about it. We've got like a close up of it from here. Take in mind the magnifying glass isn't live. This is just of a still screenshot. We can still take a look at things up close. I remember people in the past were wording it as it looks like someone wiped it down, cleaned it. And I was like, what? I mean, look at the mess all around the side. But I think people were referring to the floor, possibly. Like, it's dirty around the edges, but in the middle, it looks a little bit cleaner, right? You see what I'm saying? Spillage there, but right in the center, it's a little bit clearer. And you thought the midsection of it probably would have been just as dirty because that's where the feet would be if you're stood upright inside. I mean, if you think of it, Brenner, when walking into here and he saw this mess, he probably wouldn't be that impressed. Like, he'd be thinking, oh, there's nothing of interest here aside from some cocoa pebbles or something and some eggs left out. Kitchen roll too, left on the side. Cooker there with the stove hob. And then, of course, there's cupboards, some of them open. Now, last time I mentioned about that cupboard door, the inside of it, it said the number 3 on it. Is that some kind of code number? Did it mean anything special? And people responded with, that's something maybe the workers did, or like when they were building this trailer, when they were fitting these hinges, these cupboards and wood together. Sometimes they measure it out, make measurements on the wood, and they don't like scribble or erase it afterwards, and it's just left there. Yeah, I get that now. I do understand. I would really say, though, the main focus here would be the cupboards, as you see up here, and mainly the floor. The floor for any footprints, the cupboards, in case Brenner opened any. But if he did open any of them, then surely there would be DNA left upon it, right? Have I heard anything about DNA found in the trailer of Dylan's, which is linked with Brenner? No. Has anyone else heard of it, though? Let me know. So, possibilities are, if there was no DNA found in here of Brenner, he could have still walked in, but not really done much else, right? I guess the other thing what we've got to take in mind, whilst we're looking at this trailer, right? Whoever came to return back the gun and key fob, likely Brenner, let's say. No prints left on the gun or key fob, right? Cleaned down, most likely. But also when returned, maybe wrapped up in some cloth, or maybe the person was wearing gloves. Because when you wear gloves, it conceals your fingerprints. It stops that oil. It stops that DNA being imprinted upon something. So whoever returned back must have been wearing gloves to be able to open the trailer door, walk on inside, and place the stuff down, and then shut the door on the way out, right? Was the same done the first time round when Brenner visited? Maybe. But it's still that thing of, even if you didn't touch anything whatsoever, just simply standing about inside, you can leave footprints behind, right? If you've like walked through dirt. And, you know, if it rained in the early hours of Saturday, and it's been described as hellacious rain by, you know, the witnesses, did they notice anything? Did the witnesses Were the witnesses still present there on the Saturday after 7:43 a.m? When did they leave? What time? Do we need to do a dedicated video to that, or just a smaller one? Maybe we can. Maybe we can do a short 5-minute video next time, just so the discussion points don't fade away. We'll do that, okay? But yeah, when I'm looking here, there's not too much that intrigues me, right? Because it just looks a mess. You got that TV there, which is interesting. Fair-sized one. But yeah, supposedly the gun and key fob that was returned back here, it was probably from the other angle where you can see more, right? Unfortunately, we're looking the wrong way. Okay. So I think that's it for there. Can't really see any footprints. Not much else, right? There is black stuff on the ground. I don't know what that actually is. Is it sauce? Liquid? Soy sauce? I don't know. It's black. Is it oil? Let me know your thoughts, right? And you see it there as well. Let's move on. So move on to Dylan's truck, right? We don't need to go too much in terms of the power wash, pressure washed situation, because it still seems it's opinionated, based off opinions. And I felt like sometimes if you think too hard, you can get a little bit confused by the truck scenario. But let's just base it off. Let's just visualize it as once Brenner's done with the trailer, or, you know, if he didn't bother with the trailer whatsoever and he just got here, he could be thinking, here's Dylan's truck, the pickup one. Maybe I can use this to dispose of Dylan. Sure, I've got my own truck, but I don't want Dylan inside of it, a dead body, because, I don't like that. I don't want to be remembered of that down the line. And also, I don't want to further incriminate myself with, his blood on my hands in the truck, right? It might sound a bit ironic, that, considering Brenner being a bit clumsy here and there and leaving prints behind on stuff, but, depends what's going through his mind. He might be, at the time, he might be thinking he's doing a good job, he's being intelligent and smart, but then he's completely undoing all that by leaving prints on the boots, being completely unaware of that video recording, possibly starting the recording himself by being clumsy, and so on, right? So he's not really doing himself much favours at the time. Why have we chosen this photo particularly? Well, it's only because I've got a couple of Dylan's vehicle from different angles, so I just wanted to focus on this one, tying it in with, it being washed down, the argument that was put forward in the past, such as by Black Dove, who was focusing on this image at the time, may have been on Tyler Feller's live stream, and if not that, Shack Lady, or who else could it be? I don't know. And they were focusing on underneath the truck, where you look, okay, you got the cracks in the ground, but then you got these like little lumps, these little lumpy parts where it looks like as if dirt has collected. It's been washed off the truck and collected upon the ground. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, right? The tyres, the wheels themselves don't look too dirty. I mean, they say that the wheel well under the wheels, the arch there, collection of dirt, messy, not cleaned down. But the actual tyres look somewhat clean. They're not clogged up with dirt. You look at the imprint of the tyre. They look fairly clean, considering. You look underneath back there, it does look very patchy and it does look a little bit damp. Kind of has the same texture as some of the photos we saw at Sun Tunnel, where the ground looked kind of moist, kind of wet. Not soaking wet, but moist. But there was water there at some point and it's absorbed it, right? That's what it seems like. And then that's like the hose, the pipe that wraps around the outside of the truck. What other images do we have here? So back down that way, you see at the bottom where you got those like little boxes and the odd bit of pipe. That's just underneath Dylan's trailer, if I'm correct in saying. And yeah, I mean, you look at the ground, that blackness looks very patchy. What caused that? Because you look at the side there, it looks smooth, it's lighter. So why is it all black and patchy here? Is it because it's moist and wet? Is it because the ground was disturbed here when walking up and down it? Let me know your thoughts. Because we're trying to look at it in the point of view. Taking in mind this photo was obviously taken after Brenner went down here, right? After Dylan's disappearance. But these are the most relevant photos we have, I guess, in the case. So it's just visualizing it from Brenner's point of view. What was around at the time? What was of use to him? What would he operate, right? Any other images? And there's the back end of Dylan's truck, as you can see. Once again, patchy in these spots. Not quite sure why. Let me know your thoughts to that. And as well, that, I think, pole rod in the ground from the looks of it. Don't know why that's there, if anyone knows. And there's the truck, as you see from the back end, F-150 Ford. That's it for the images. So we'll just refer back to this photo because it's a better angle of the truck. You think Brenner, he's at this point and he's like, well, main thing is I need to get back to the property where Dylan likely is at. Whether Dylan's left in the grain shed, bleeding out or already dead, or inside Brenner's trailer, most likely the grain shed, right? Brenner's like, well, I need to get back there to then dispose of Dylan, possibly. So, you know, he might have been feeling like, oh, I can't really find anything. There's not really much here I can really do with. But, oh, what about that F-150? Maybe I could use this to drive back to the grain shed property and then put Dylan inside of the truck and take him somewhere, right? If that was the case, if this truck was really used, then Dylan wasn't buried the first time round that far away from the farm, right? Well, it makes you think, why would you need to use this truck to dispose of Dylan if he wasn't taken that far? Like, if you're going to bury, let's just word it like this. If you were going to conceal Dylan rounds, and we're talking about the first burial site, Brenner's doing that, and he's doing it on site. All you really need is like a backhoe, right? A backhoe would do, such as that. You can use the scooper part, the bucket, or you can use the front part to start digging away, create a hole, and then roll Dylan into the hole and fill it up, right? That's one way, if you're doing it on site. If you're not doing it on site and you wanted to, let's say, bury Dylan at Bald Eagle Mountain or Governor's Spring, most likely you'll need to have a vehicle to get there in the first place because there's some distance to be covered and it's fairly steep, right? The gradient. You're not going to be walking up that. And as well, if you're taking a dead weight there, which is Dylan, that's going to be hard work. Easiest thing to do is bundle Dylan in the back of a truck, drive to that spot, get out, pull Dylan out, throw him on the floor or throw him down a mine shaft, whatever, or dig a hole, dispose of him, and then drive away, right? That's really it. That doesn't seem to be the case for the first time attempt of disposing of Dylan. It seems the desecration part when removing Dylan to take him elsewhere where he's not been found yet could be maybe further afar, so then you would use a truck like this inside the F-150. So I'm going to give you my thoughts right now. The way I see it, Brenner coming down here, spending 30 minutes, most likely looking through a trailer just to see if there's any items of interest, any money, first of all, or firearms. And then finishing off by looking inside of the F-150. I don't have like images inside of the truck, but looking through the window, depending which way he entered, there's a possibility that maybe the truck wasn't moved or used immediately, let's just say, because I'm basing it off the idea that Dylan was buried near to the grain shed property or near to the pond, in which maybe you don't really need a vehicle as much as you would if it was further afar. All you would really need is some kind of equipment to be able to dig a hole, such as a backhoe or a spade if you're going to do it manually, but that doesn't seem practical. So I'll give you an alt theory. Brenner may have gone inside this truck of Dylan's, searching about, looking for any other additional items inside. He didn't find anything in the trailer, so he resorted to the truck. And as he was adjusting the seat, maybe moving it forwards so he could reach into the back or look around the back of the seat or underneath the seat, that caused that. And as well, because he seems to be clumsy, his hand, leg or arm may have flicked the all-wheel drive switch, button, whatever you call it, and that's why it was turned on, accidental. And in the process of all that, Brenner eventually found Dylan's gun and thought, ooh, that looks pretty nice, I'll take that with me. Yeah, could explain that. Then, really, if it's true that the gun and key fob was taken away and returned at a later point, there would be no need whatsoever to take a key fob away if you weren't planning on taking the truck with you. You get what I'm saying? Unless that key fob is for not just the vehicle, but there's like a keychain which has a key to the trailer in which Brenner accessed, maybe. And it does make you think, if Brenner found the gun inside of Dylan's pickup truck, then why did he return it back to the trailer and not to the truck? Was he just not thinking at the time? At a later point, did he forget where he originally found it? Maybe. You know, just these little questions here and there. You know, there are 2 points which do lean towards the overall idea that Brenner did use Dylan's truck. And we go just her aerial viewpoint. If you think about it, maybe you don't need a vehicle to dispose of Dylan if it's on site or very near to where Dylan was murdered, right? You'd only have to drag him a little stretch and then dig a hole. Though, if it was just a little bit further away, just a little bit more further away, and it involved going down unstable terrain, things got a little bit messy and rough, such as a wash, whether that be first time or second time desecration, right? Then maybe you would need a vehicle to get down in there. Walking through it may be a little bit more risky, a bit more tiring and draining, because we have seen the wash itself, the way it like drops down. It can be a bit steep in some areas. And if you tried walking down into it, it could be a bit of a jolt on your body, depending which way you access it, of course. So there is that. And as well, just that simple point I said, that if the key fob was originally taken away, you'd only really take the key fob away if you're also using the truck itself. Now, my only question is to you, how did Brenner get a hold of the key fob to begin with? Was it in Dylan's possession? Was Dylan holding it or had it in his pocket at the time he was murdered? Yes or no? Did Brenner pat down Dylan, checking for what was on him, took the key fob off, then went down to the farm? Or did Brenner go down to the farm and find the key fob laying about? been said in the past by Candice Cooley that Dylan would never lock his pickup truck. Well, if he never locked it, did he ever leave the keys in the ignition? Or did he always leave the keys on him in his possession as he was doing his own farm work or other stuff in between? That's all I want to know. And the key fob itself, was it just a key fob to the pickup truck as we see on screen, or was it to the trailer as well? A singular key on a fob or multiple keys? Does anyone know? Just little questions like that. Because remember that previous forum, what we were reading, I think it was Grandma Bear saying, did Dylan have work and private related keys on just one, or were they separate from one another? Just those little points there, right? Anything else to infer from? I guess we can just head back over to the maps. So back on aerial view of Dylan's farm, taking in mind with Candice Cooley saying whoever was here on site was here roughly for about 30 minutes. Brenner, if that's the case. And then returning back to the grain shed property afterwards, with it being the second to last phone ping. Just go back up here. Which would mean returning back would be around 8:23 a.m. Still early on in the day, to be fair. We've got to acknowledge that. Arguably speaking, Brenner acted somewhat quick from the moment Dylan got to the grain shed to the point he was killed, then to the point Brenner went down to the farm and got whatever and came back with it, such as the pickup truck of Dylan's, right? And then once getting back here, 8:23 a.m., what happened then? Well, from what Candice Cooley said, not much happened after this phone ping, right? It was only 2:51 p.m. when the next phone ping of Dylan Round's phone popped up, and that was at Lucin Pond, because that was round the time when the phone was dumped into the pond by Brenner, from the looks of it, right? So, 8:23 a.m. to 2:51 p.m. That's a fair bit of time, right? I mean, roughly speaking, what, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's a couple of hours, not a couple, there's a fair few hours to be doing stuff in between, right? What is that exactly? Kind of unknown of. Like, I saw some comments previous, I think it was Ty Corbin saying, oh, there was no time to be disposing, concealing or desecrating Dylan on this day, at this time, this point, but 8:23 a.m. to 2:51 p.m. in the afternoon. I think that's a fair bit of time to be disposing of Dylan, right? But for the phone ping to remain back here, did that mean Brenner remained here as well, right? Because what we've relied on from the looks of it is wherever Dylan Round's phone goes, that's where Brenner follows, because he's in possession of it. And we're talking about post 7:27 a.m. Okay? So, yeah. But there is always that possibility that Brenner could have just simply put Dylan Round's phone down or left it in the trailer and then proceeded going about other places to get on with other stuff, right? That's a possibility as well. You don't have to be in possession of the phone 24/7, right? Ultimately, what would really have helped is if we had the phone pings of Brenner's actual phone, right? If Brenner, well, first of all, if the phone ping from Dylan showed up at his farm at 7:43, and Brenner's actual phone ping showed up here as well at the same time, then it reinforces that Brenner was down here for a reason and that he was present. And then after it, because seems to be under the impression that Dylan's phone remained here up to 2:51 p.m. Then not really much happened in between. Or if anything did happen, probably preferably disposing of Dylan, it must have been on this land, this area, right? Because like, if Brenner's moving about, digging stuff up, moving things, moving Dylan, and it's just roughly in this area, then that is probably where Dylan was disposed of the first time round. Okay? And then whatever happened after that, the desecration part took place, maybe a day later or two or longer. But because the phone was disposed of on the Saturday, if any activity took place the days later, what phone pings do you have to rely on? You'd have to rely on in hopes that Brenner had his phone with him when he was doing all these activities, right? You know what I'm saying? And speaking of Brenner's phone, his actual phone pings. If on the Saturday at 8:23 a.m. Dylan Round's phone remains here, what was going on with Brenner's phone? Brenner's phone pings. Were Brenner's phone pings present here as well, or were they moving about elsewhere? Because if it, let's say Brenner's phone ping was somewhere over here, like that, not saying it is, but if it was, then maybe Brenner put down Dylan's phone and then just focused on disposing of Dylan, but forgot about he's got his own phone with him, so it'd still track him. I mean, I just don't know. Is Brenner the type of guy to walk around with the phone in his hand or in his pocket? Or does he just leave it dumped in the trailer because it's not of much use to him? If he's got an old flip phone, he doesn't really care about the latest of technology. But then again, if he doesn't care about the latest of technology, then he's not really going to care, bother, or think about potential tracking, right? So that could lead to him being reckless and being caught in the act in some way, being tracked down, right? And some viewers have said that the police most likely have Brenner's phone pings as well. If that's the case, then why did Candice Cooley say that they weren't able to retrieve any data from Brenner's phone because it died? Well, the data was lost because it only lasted for 7 days. And it's not been brought up since that, unless Candice Cooley was advised to lie and go against it because it was important. That's a possibility. But then why has it not been talked about since then? If they're able to release public about Dylan's phone pings, then why can't they do the same with Brenner's phone pings? Is it because it might come up a certain spot area or a wash, and then that could reveal the original location where Dylan was taken, and then it would obviously lead to random people going down and causing disruption? Maybe that's the one reason to why they didn't. And it could explain possibly to how the police found the first burial site of Dylan, right? Because if Brenner's phone pings were in a certain direction in the desert, then they could have used that to track down a possible spot where Brenner tried disposing of Dylan. And whilst you can't rely on Dylan's phone at all times in the day because it might have been left dormant until it was then disposed of later in the day, in between, you rely on Brenner's phone to fill in that gap. Both phones present at the time in the same spot really does reinforce things. But as long as you got one or the other, you can rely on that to an extent to understand what went on in the day, right? So with that being said, at least from my point of view, based on the fact that I don't have Brenner's phone pings, and that Candice Cooley worded it as, once Brenner got back from Dylan's farm back to the Grangeshed property, not much happened, as we see on here, by the timestamps. You'd think that Brenner either sat back, relaxed, or disposed of Dylan on site, on the land here. But then why would you need Dylan's truck then? Why would you drive Dylan's truck up here? What's the point putting Dylan in the truck if you're going to dispose of him on site? Sure, you might use the truck later on, right? If you're going to take Dylan further afar. But, it just wouldn't quite make sense. Like, what was the whole point of going down to Dylan's farm then if you weren't going to use the truck? Was it just to get a gun, steal it? And as we said earlier on, that if Brenner did use Dylan's gun to take Dylan out, most likely you'd have had to expect that Dylan was in possession of the firearm on site of the Grangeshed property for Brenner to get a hold of it. Because the only other way would be earlier on in the day if Brenner went down to Dylan's farm, and I'm sure Dylan would have been alerted by that Brenner coming down, right? Yeah. And there was no indication of anything dodgy going on because Dylan made a normal phone call to the grandmother before getting to the Grangeshed property. So if anything bad did happen earlier before that, such as Brenner coming down, confrontation or trying to steal anything, but Dylan didn't acknowledge it, so that didn't seem to be the case. So if a firearm was used, it was probably Brenner's, one of the missing pistols, maybe the chrome one, possibly. And if Dylan's gun was taken afterwards, that was around that time of the 7:43 a.m. After the 7:43 a.m. timestamp, add on maybe 20 minutes on to 7:43, possibly. Or a bit under 20 minutes for it to tie in with the next timestamp. Yeah. Hopefully it's somewhat clear to you. Really, this video is just focusing in on Dylan's farm and the time frame, the period of where Brenner was present and what he really needed, what was really practical to him at that time. I mean, to be taking a gun away from Dylan's farm, Dylan's possession, you can't be using that gun to kill Dylan when you've technically already done that. So you'd probably just be taking the gun away because you want to take it as a memento, or you just like collecting guns. And as we've heard, Brenner stole that .22 rifle, so stealing Dylan's gun isn't much of a surprise, right? Not that it has to be used, it can just be taken because he feels like it. As for the key fob, you really only take the key fob with you as if you were going to take the vehicle too with you to be used. But if the timestamps, as we've seen on screen, show it didn't really move until much later on in the day, then either Brenner just sat about on his arse, did absolutely nothing, or he did bury Dylan on site and then just left the truck nearby. The only other possible idea, and we just briefly add it in now, back to the 8:23 a.m. timeline. If Brenner got back here in Dylan's pickup truck, Brenner may have put Dylan inside of the truck and Brenner left Dylan's phone dumped on the side on the land, the property here, so he knew that the phone couldn't track the next set of movements, let's just say. Maybe going down this road, and if not, going down the back road, which is back this way, as you see, taking a left here, possibly, and then at some point taking a right. Yeah, that one. Taking a right. Is that even a road? Doesn't look like it. You got a crossroad here, coming up this way, which then runs up to Lucin Pond, right? But maybe not to do with 251 timestamp, just going past it to be able to get to the wash area. I need to zoom out for this one. Where's that part where it drops into the wash? Here. So just before you get to the pond, that's the wash as you see as it bends all the way around and goes over that way. But this initial part looks like the road drops into it, doesn't it? So Brenner came from that way, the back roads, gone into the wash, which may have caused a bit of splash of mud, and then maybe drove down this way, because you can see tyre marks from the looks of it, and this is 2019 imagery, right? So it has been used in the past for whatever reason. And because it's not filled with water 24/7, it does dry up, then it can be accessed. It does look like some kind of tyre marks, track marks, doesn't it, in some areas? And somewhere down here, maybe Brenner disposed of Dylan the first time round. As for the desecration part, who knows where Dylan was taken then? Because, of course, Dylan has not been found yet. But that's just my only other concept of why the truck of Dylan's would have been used and how it would have been used, right? and explaining why the phone ping did not move till later in the day because the phone was left about stationary whilst Brenner was elsewhere disposing of Dylan. Does that make sense to you? And this could be a spot at one point, but no longer anymore. So I think we'll leave it there. So one thing I just wanted to point out very quickly, don't go anywhere. I just noticed a new comment was posted, very recent, as of recording it right now. Scrolling up, we saw Indiana's comment, the last one I believe. 36 minutes ago by Hiker X. We've seen Hiker X in recent time on the channel. He's appeared in the live chat, which is good. But this comment, let's just read what he says. It was a setup. Candice Cooley is involved. Kurt Wadsworth is involved. Ed Harshberger is involved. Dylan Rounds was shot in the chest. First burial under his crop. 6th row. When reading that, it's interesting, of course, the way it's structured with all the ... dots, the way the sentences are separate from one another. And in a way, it's quite specific about Dylan being shot directly in the chest area, about the first burial being under his crop, so at Dylan's farm, 6th row, the 6th row of the crop. Is this completely the truth? I don't know. Is it someone being cryptic? Who knows? All I would say is, Hiker X, if you're able to provide an explanation, if you are, where did you get this information, this supposed information from? Who did you hear it from? Where did it come from? Okay. Not really much else that can be said. Was it from a psychic or was it from a direct source in the case? I know people have talked about Dylan's farm and maybe the pivot, the crops, the main line. Has that been searched properly? Is there anything possible there that could be of interest? And so on. But I can't say too much about this because I don't really know that much specifically about this, though just wanted to share it with you. If you want to continue that discussion in the chat or comment section, feel free to do so. You know, this comment just popped up very recent, so I thought I might as well include it in this video. So I think we'll leave the video there. Let me know how you found the video. Was it of much use? Was it somewhat clear to understand? Following on from the timestamps and almost printing it visually from the photos what we've seen at the farm. If you have any additional thoughts or just simple questions, list it down below in the comment section. It'll be interesting to see what happens next and also what the next thing is to cover. I know I'm very close to finishing that forum page stuff, so if that can be done next, then yes. If there's anything else to look at, then that. And then after it, we just see where we're at. You never know, there could be some breaking news or smaller breaking news that comes out soon. Time will tell, of course. In between now from then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night for now.